Hey everybody, a while back this spring I did a pretty massive upgrade on 3 desktop computers from a client. Upgraded them to the AMD Ryzen 3 2200G APU platform, and I posted the video pretty much of almost everything. It was a very long video. It took a long time to get it processed and uploaded. But everybody really seemed to enjoy it, so here I am again. We have 2 more machines that we're going to be doing practically the same thing to. So, without further ado, let's go and get started. Down on the floor are the 2 machines that are getting upgraded. We have an Acer tower and another E-Machines tower. So the Acer is sporting either a Pentium D processor or a Core 2 Duo, not sure which. It's already on its replacement motherboard. The original motherboard already failed, and the motherboard that's in this machine now isn't in the best condition. The motherboard was already a used pull at the time it was installed, so I mean it carried on for at least about 2 years or 3 years before they pulled it out of service. You see the little OOS stickers on top, out of service. So the E-Machines tower, this one I think, it was one of their XP computers that I had put Windows 7 and Windows 10 on sometime later on. Assuming these are the stock specs, it has a Pentium D processor, which I think it is the factory stock specs.
Hey there, I'm Cortana, and I'm here to help. A little sign in here, a touch of Wi-Fi there, and we'll have your PC ready for all.
How about you shut up? So anyways, yeah. These computers have been chugging along for several years, and it's time for them to get the upgrade they really deserve. The AMD Ryzen 3 2200G APUs. Okay, since you've gotten to see the machines, let's go ahead and pan down and have a look at the components. Now, this is practically the same as last time, so you know the drill is next to the circular saw. We have 2 AMD Ryzen 3 2200G APUs. We have 2 8GB kits of Patriot memory. We have 2 SATA optical drives. We have 2 ASRock A320M-HTV motherboards. Again, these are Ryzen Desktop 2000 ready motherboards. That's a big key thing, unless you like to insert a first-gen Ryzen processor and manually update the BIOS on everyone, but I prefer things just to work out of the box, if you know what I mean. So we have those, and in here we have 2 hard disk drives, 500GB drives. Go ahead and open these up. And I want to go ahead and mention that the client is very happy with the performance of the previous upgrades that I've done, so no surprise, they're back for more. So what kind of hard drives they sent me this time. Man, they really pack these things in there. Okay, so these are actually white label drives. The ones from the previous upgrade were Western Digitals, though I think both times I actually ordered white label, and the first time they sent me Western Digital. So yeah, these particular drives are actually Western Digital drives. Just practically with a generic label on them. I've used several of these, and although some of the earlier ones I did have some returns on, most of the ones I've dealt with have been perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I have a 4 terabyte white label drive just like these in the Mid-Tower Deluxe right now. And it's been doing just fine. But let's see. Matter of fact, I think either one or both those machines down there have white label drives in them from previous refurbishments, and they're working just fine. Wow, they really packed those things good. The only thing I don't like is these are SATA 3 gigabits per second drives, not 6 gigabit per second drives. But that really is just that's just the connection rate. Not necessarily mean that your drive is going to perform that fast. But it's pretty much what I could get to a certain budget for this client. Here's the optical drives. And pretty much like last time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and prepare the processor and motherboards. We'll prepare the motherboards with the CPU, or APU rather, and memory. That way it helps streamline the upgrade process. Open this up. We get the manual, the shield, the M.2 drive screw. Which what's nice is if the client wishes they can upgrade to an M.2 SSD in the future, because it'll be right there ready for it to go. And there's the motherboard. It's just like last time pretty much. Okay, I'm going to go grab my Phillips screwdriver and we'll go and get going with this. Okay, so we'll go ahead and unpackage the motherboard. Install our memory. Everybody's installed. Going to take these brackets loose. I have a drawer over here just for these brackets to go in. In some of my recent videos you may have noticed I have added drawers to the desk here. I've added a lot of space to store stuff. So essentially the Ryzen cooler does not use the clips, but rather it installs through the motherboard using the factory backplate supplied with the motherboard. It's kind of like installing the water block on the mid-tower deluxe. The Heat Core 3.0 LC and the Raystorm Pro are both the same way. They both use the backplate. Go ahead and unbox our Ryzen APU. And of course you're greeted with the Goliath cooler there. The humongous cooler. And let's see if with each of these we get both our stickers this time. If you remember on the last system upgrade, one of the three processors didn't include the Vega graphics. It was either, I can't remember if it was the Ryzen 3 badge or the Vega graphics badge. One of them was missing. And we have both of them there. That's always a good sign. Carefully open up the protective case. The little triangle is right there on the socket, so we'll carefully place it in. And close down the socket. Be very careful with these because there's really small pins on these processors. You don't want to mess them up. And pull out our cooler. And of course I'll start throwing unnecessary boxes off into the floor once I get them empty. And the big, of course, the big Goliath heatsink fan. And these hard drives could go somewhere else too. I don't need them in the way. Not quite as big as it looks from just looking down to the box, but that's plenty of heatsink for this particular application. So just like last time, I will install it with the AMD facing to the left. I think that's how I had it. Yeah, because the fan header's right there. In case you're wondering why I haven't installed any thermal compound, it's because I'm just using what's already supplied on this cooler. You know, for basic applications like this, unless you're like doing serious overclocking, which in that case you would obviously be using a better cooler than the factory one. You know, unless you're doing anything extreme, the thermal compound that's supplied should work just fine. And just like last time, Line these up. Start threading them in one by one, working our way around. So essentially what I'm doing is little by little in a clockwise motion. And you could do counterclockwise if you wish, if you're doing this. To get started, I'll go ahead and torque them down. Go ahead and plug in our fan header. Okay, this one here is ready to go, and we'll go ahead and do the next one. Okay. Now on to the next one. Turn it this way so you can see in the box pretty well. Try to group this stuff together. Everything. At least we're only doing 2 this time, so I have a third less boxes and stuff laying around for this job, which is nice. Believe me, when you do system upgrades and system builds, you can have a huge mess of boxes and stuff everywhere. See, as I mentioned, they're very happy with this platform. It's working perfectly for them. Okay, so more of the same process. This time I'm going to aim the camera down a little lower. Hopefully you can see a little better. Go ahead and do the memory installation. See, one thing, guys, is a very common upgrade you can do to a computer is upgrade the RAM. You'd be amazed. I'm sure a lot of people bring their computers into Best Buy or Staples. Well, I know from personal experience with Staples, they bring the computers into the retail store a lot of times to have their memory upgraded. And they'll spend a huge inflated amount of money on the retail price of the RAM, and also spend a crap ton of money on the service to have it installed. And you see, I just installed this memory in what, a minute? This is probably the easiest upgrade one can do to a computer. No special software to install. There's no, I mean, memory is memory. Although you do have to know what kind of RAM your computer has, which finding that information is relatively easy. You can just download CPU-Z, and it can tell you how many banks memory banks your computer has, and how many are free, and what kind of memory you have, such as DDR4, DDR3, DDR2 if you're running a really old computer, DDR, or a very, very old computer, SD-RAM, or even older than that. That's okay. You get the idea. Alright, so we got Big Goliath and our Ryzen 3 2200G APU. Now, before I install that, and pull out this bracket, as it's not needed. Put the boxed cooler. It's interesting how AMD has maintained mostly compatibility of coolers all the way back since socket 754. I could take a socket 754 heatsink from 2004. That's roughly whenever, yeah, that's roughly the time that the Athlon 64 came out. I could take a heatsink from that era and actually fit it right on here. Whereas with Intel, you had one for socket 478, you had one for LGA 775, and you had different ones for the newer sockets as well. There's several different changes they've made, whereas AMD has pretty much maintained compatibility. Now, starting with the, I think socket FM1, the holes got moved to where they are now. So for any through-hole applications, yeah, you would have to make changes. Okay, so we got the brackets out of the way. Let's go and get this puppy installed. Let's see if we have both stickers with this one. Yep, we sure do. Not sure what happened on that one during the previous upgrade, what happened there. Perhaps the machine that spits them out into the little plastic things had a little malfunction there. It's just like years ago when I bought a Phenom 2 processor. I ended up getting like 5 or 6 Phenom 2 case badges in one box. Matter of fact, there's one brand new one right there. So if I want to do a older build using the Phenom 2, I'd still have a brand new case badge to slap on it. And there's the cooler. So put that to the side. Okay, it's going to get this thing installed. It's amazing what you can do when you start talking. Get off track just a little bit. Again, be really careful with this. Again, I'm using the pre-applied thermal paste, which in this case we just simply install the cooler. If you remember from the previous video, the processor, the APUs ran nice and cool. Tell you what, guys, this is a definite improvement over what AMD has used over the years. For those who have been in this as long as I am, if not much longer, you probably remember the days of having to pull out the flat blade screwdriver and pray that you don't slip and gouge your motherboard when installing that Athlon XP or Athlon Socket A processor. It's literally like back in the days, like back in 2005, 2006. The stuff that was out back then and the stuff before that. It's like AMD's processor socket design was literally the equivalent of Intel's previous generation. I mean, Intel had the Pentium 2, which was based on a slot, was based on a slot processor, and then Intel went to the Pentium 3, which was a FCPGA, while the first Athlons from AMD were using the slot A. What's even funnier is, for those of you who are relatively young and are still learning about computers, and I'm talking about the guys who comment on my Cooking with Intel episode 1, saying that as an AMD processor, not Intel. Yeah, back in the day, it's just funny. Processors from AMD and Intel pretty much reside on the same socket. The earlier AMDs were essentially clones of Intels. Yeah, you know, Intel came out with the 486, and then later on AMD came out with the AM486. This is an example. Okay, so you don't have to tighten the crap out of these. Just make sure they're firm. Okay, so that one there is ready to go. Be back in just a moment. Okay, so before I actually start tearing these down and doing upgrades, I am going to start them up just one more time to make sure everything in the machine is working okay, particularly the power supplies. And what's nice about this particular client is they have somebody on hand who does do sort of basic IT work, and he sort of does like their in-house IT stuff as far as their software and stuff goes, but anything major like computer problems or computer upgrades and stuff like that are usually sent out to me. So this is looking inside the Acer. Try to get you a somewhat decent view. I'll just take the camera off the tripod for this. But yeah, so this is the one that had the motherboard replaced back in, I think it was late 2014 or 2015, because it was right after I had quit working at Staples, I do believe. Yeah, tell you what's funny about this, guys, is that motherboard came out of a machine that a customer brought into Staples to have e-cycled, and of course, you know, Staples, they just take them for free. Yeah, they take them for free. They generally don't give the customers any money for them, and they go to get e-cycled. And I managed to. This is funny. The customer, I kind of let the customer know that, hey, I personally do IT work. I'll be glad to buy this off of you. So I met the customer at Walmart that evening, nearby Walmart that evening, and I purchased the 2 computers for $40. These were full machines, and this motherboard came out of one of them. So this is actually it's a Pentium. I think it's a Pentium D or a Core 2. Can't remember for sure. We'll find out when I start it up. DDR2 based platform, and it has a bizarre issue to where here's how it started with this motherboard. You plug it in and you press the power button, and it would do nothing. But once I shorted the green and black wires together for the power supply, it came on. But now, anytime the power supply gets power, it stays on all the time, and it's not the power supply. It's not the power supply unit. It is actually the motherboard. But other than that, it worked fine. So inside here we have, see, Western Digital Caviar Blue hard drive. It's probably one that I installed back in either 2014 or 2015, one of those years. And this machine has a floppy disk drive, and we're going to get rid of that, because no, I'm not doing the floppy disk thing like I did to the Mid-Tower Deluxe. Yeah, so I'll find me a faceplate and install in its place. We'll have to figure something out there. So that's the Acer, and we're going to plug it up and see if it starts. Okay, so I have everything except for the power plugged up to this machine. Watch what happens here. See if it does it. Boy, it really sucked some power. The NTC probably got a workout there. As you see, it's running, but it's not running. Okay, so the motherboard might be bad in this one. Let's see if we get any post. Oh, it went that time. That was weird. And we got Windows 10 on this one. It's a real bizarre issue there, I think. It's done this for about 3 years now, I think. I told the client, I was like, here are your options. I mean, we can replace this motherboard, or you can just keep using it like it is. That's the only thing about it is you have to manually unplug the power cord to shut it off, because otherwise it will just run. Run but not run. And Windows 10 is doing some updates, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some overall checks of this machine, and then we'll go ahead and strip it down for an upgrade. Okay, so while this one's doing its thing, let's go and have a look at the eMachine system. And I was wrong, I thought this was a DDR system. It's actually a DDR2. So I may try to refurbish, or I may try to use this motherboard and stuff as a platform for a refurbished computer. Now this is quite dated, but believe it or not, Pentium Ds actually run Windows 10 pretty well. Yeah, my neighbor has a machine that I refurbed for her years ago, and it's got Windows 10 on it, and it's Pentium D. pretty basic in specs, but just for, you have to understand, a lot of people just need computers for just web browsing and stuff like that, and this kind of hardware will still work just fine for that. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just checking before I actually strip these down and do upgrades. I check them. I do a check of each one to see what components are okay, make sure the hard drive is still in healthy condition, you know, stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and finish this up, and I'll do that one, and we'll go ahead and get started with the actual upgrades. Okay, so my work is pretty much done with this one. Since we're upgrading these, who cares if we do a proper shutdown? Just pull the power cord. And just to prove to you guys that this is in fact the motherboard doing this weird crap, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the main ATX power connector. And you see right there, there it is. All nice and disconnected. Let's go ahead and plug in the power supply. Man. And you can see nothing. It's like that power supply don't have a very good NTC thermistor in it, because man, it really, you notice the lights will blink out there for a second. Then again, it's probably the fact that these new LED lights, as mentioned in an earlier video, I don't think they have much of any circuitry in them. It's just LED strands. Not to mention, you can see the ripple on the video screen there. Yeah, these are dimmable, so that tells you something there. So, anyways, I certainly hope that when I plug in power supply doesn't trip the breaker, because it's got the plexi, got these lights, and the mid-tower lux running on the same breaker. Now, I'm going to pull this one out and do the same thing with the eMachine system. Okay, got this one plugged up. Let's see if we get the same blink of the lights. Yeah, pretty much. Alright, so start this one up and see how it does. Okay, so that one there is apparently not wanting to post. Could be a bad board, could be a number of different things. Notice how the DVD burner keeps accessing. Try it again. Okay, so the first one was working okay. At least it was a working machine other than the weird power issue it's had. This one here appears to have been pulled out of service due to possible motherboard failure. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the upgrades. We'll start out with the Acer machine. Okay, let the fun games begin with this one. So this machine, what's nice about this chassis is we have a lot of tool-free drive bays. It's one of those really cool Acer towers from the mid-2000s. Yeah, these are pretty nice to work with. We're going to take out the DVD drive, which just pull this to the left, and we'll disconnect the last cable, and out it comes. You can't get any more simple than that. At least I think. And pull out the cable. floppy disk drive. And we'll have to figure out something to put in place here. I may toss in a card reader or something I might have laying around. Don't know if it'd be SDHC compatible or not, but the floppy disk drive has got to go. It is not compatible with what's coming in here. And we'll be swapping out the hard drive too, so we'll be pulling the hard drive out. Pull these cables off first. And out it comes. Disconnect all the remaining cables. Now this machine has two USB headers, USB 2.0 headers. And if I slap a card reader in, I don't think the new board would have enough USB 2.0 headers. So I may just have to put a faceplate in place where the floppy disk drive used to go. The other thing about these Acer machines is their I/O, their front panel headers are correctly pinned out for hard drive, activity, power, indicator, and power switch, but they also have over here an extra LED for LAN activity. Now with the new board, as long as there's nothing to the immediately to the right of this header, I can plug this right in just fine like I did here. But if there is something there, I'll have to do exactly what I did to a different one of these a while back. I had to take my dikes and actually cut this off and put off to the side. So just little minor things like that, really. Use this for any issues I can get access to. It'll make tear down this a little bit faster. Well, I mentioned this board does have a failed capacitor right there. comes the old motherboard. Stick it off to the side somewhere. Get rid of the old iron shield. Gotta be careful with these because sometimes they will cut you. Okay, that shield is installed. So I'll go ahead and grab our motherboard and get it installed. So look at this board, and we do in fact have just two sets of USB 2.0 headers. So card reader is going to be out. Going to be not an option. What would be nice is if I had a faceplate to put in here that had two USB 3 ports. That would be nice to have, but unfortunately I don't have that. So what we're going to do is make sure that all the standoffs are in the right spot, which in this case they're not. We have one down here that needs to be moved up one spot. So grab the fancy one of those pliers and we'll go ahead and pop it loose and move it. And also the it looks like for the panel connections we are going to have to mod the header because it's like right next to the heatsink. Right there. Not enough room for overhang. So yeah, we're going to have to do a mod. Yeah, other than that, these Acer towers are good candidates for swapping in upgraded hardware. They're nice cases. Lots of ventilation. I mean, there's vent holes all in this thing. Plenty of ventilation. But they kind of failed it there with the front panel header. I gotta make sure of is I pull the tabs up for the HDMI header, because on both of the last ones I had to pull it out of the way after I installed the board. So I'm just going to set the board into place. I'm not going to bolt it down just yet. So I'm going to show you guys just how ridiculous of a mod you have to do to this little header. The one alternative is to take every single pin out of this piece of plastic and find a standard one and feed it back in, but then there's the alternative. I think I'm going to use the alternative. Because to be quite frank, I'd like to get this done. So, we're going to mod this header. And just like that, it is out of the way. I gotta peel this little bit of plastic out of the way over here. And this I can just tuck into a corner and tie it out of the way. Luckily this one snapped a little bit cleaner than the last one I did. Last one was a total mess. So let's see if it plugs in. See if it reaches, for that matter, which it will. Just barely. And it does plug in. So we're all good to go there. Not sure why AceRock put the front panel header way over here when it should be like in this area. Sometimes these cables just ain't quite long enough to reach. So, I mean, like literally, it's... Let's see if it's going to even fit into this little cable holder that came with this thing, which I don't think it is. So we're going to leave these separate and just zip tie this like that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and bolt down the motherboard. I'm going to use a screwdriver to do this, not the electric one. Due to the mostly tool-free design of this case, we're not having to use screws all that much. And another thing that's nice about this is a mini tower. Look at all the 3.5-inch drive bays we have. We have 2 external here, and we have 4 internal down here. You can have 4 hard drives in this thing. And I don't think there's that many. I don't think there's all that many mini towers that you can do that with. So that's pretty neat. Pretty nice design. I don't know who manufactured this case, though it was made in 2007. So back in the Windows Vista days, or Windows Vista if you want to call it that. Okay. So this motherboard is smaller than the one that came out of here, so we're not going to need as many screws going back in as we had before. So we'll have some leftover screws. And let's go ahead and plug back in our headers. I'm going to pull this serial ATA cable out since we got brand new serial ATA cables going in. So what's neat is if you have an old device that Uses an RS-232 connection. Motherboard still has a header for it. In other words, if you have an old device that uses a serial cable rather than USB, you're covered. The USB headers are over here. And right next to it is a header for a USB 3.0 port. In case you're wondering, this motherboard provides on the back 4 USB 3.0 headers, 2 USB 2 headers. There are no Type-C headers on this one. And of course, I'll get these cables tidy up a little better after getting everything installed. So it looks like we'll need to use a SATA adapter with this power supply for the optical drive. It does offer 2 SATA ports, but they're intended to be used like with 2 hard drives since the way they're situated on the cables. Other than that, power supply is good to go. It's a I think it's a 300 watt unit. Got 2 12-volt rails, 24-pin main board connector. So we're going to install our hard drive and optical drive. I'll be honest with you, the tool-free nature of this case is just, it's really nice. And there you have it. It's installed and it's nice and it's firmly secured as well. That's another good thing to note about it. It's nice and firmly secured in there. And grab our CD drive, or DVD drive rather. Slide it in. And of course, this machine had an ID optical drive in it before, so we're having to replace it with a SATA one. All good to go. I'm going to grab a Alexa SATA adapter cable. Got a bag full of these. Bought them off of eBay a few years ago. Let's see. I didn't pay too much for them either. They are kind of cheaply made, but they do the job. Just having there for those random power supplies that don't offer enough SATA connections for modern day computers. I already tell this is going to be a pretty long video. Just like the last one. I like to use these newer cables because they have most of them have the locking ends on them. That way you lower the chances of the drives coming out. I mean, not the drives, but the cables coming loose inadvertently, resulting in a service call and downtime, unnecessary downtime, of course. This cable is much longer than we need, but we'll try to make it as tight as I can. I always like it when motherboards offer the side inserting SATA ports. Those always come in handy. With this chassis, I can just route the SATA cords, at least the SATA cord for the DVD drive, over to the side out of the way. That one's in there. Okay, so at this point it looks like we're just ready to start zip tying cables up and making things look a little neater in here. And I'll have to find a faceplate, hopefully find a faceplate for this chassis for the front bezel. Make use of the already included cable tie in here. Of course, always watch for wires when you go to snap the zip ties down the sides. The last thing you want to do is accidentally cut a wire. The thing about these OEM power supplies is they can be a real bear to tidy up the wires because it's like spaghetti, really. We'll make sure that we're not putting too much stress on the motherboard here. I'm going to add this extra SATA cable into the wires down here. This ain't going to be the cleanest wire job I've ever done, but I also want to make it to where it's everything is pretty easy to access in time of need. In case any maintenance needs to be done or whatnot. I'll leave the CPU fan header just... Actually, no, I think I will tie it into the power supply cord. Not sure if you can see, you probably barely even see that, but okay, so it appears this one here is ready to go. Not the neatest wire job, but it'll do. Now I'll move on to the e-machine system. And I'll put a, I'll see if I can find me something to put in that empty drive bay later on. It'll be after I get everything set and ready to go, including Windows 10 on it, good stuff. Not sure why that board there is not wanting to post. But anyways, let's go ahead and start tearing this one down. slipped just a little bit. That's why I don't use it to install the new boards, of course. But for the old one, like, who cares? Especially when the thing ain't posting. Now, it could be a RAM issue that could be causing the no post, but I mean, so. I need a screwdriver for that one. And another one back here. The power supply was replaced in this machine at some point. Now, this machine didn't have the infamous Bestech ATX 25012E power supply in it. It probably had a 312E or a equivalent Delta power supply. Some of them had Delta power supplies. And got this nice sparkle unit in there now. I may have dropped it in myself, or it was probably already installed. I can't remember for sure. And of course, it'd be a keeper. But we'll also need to use a SATA adapter on it as well. Go figure. You know, some of these earlier units only had SATA connectors for the hard drives. Yeah, this one was, this machine was serviced by whoever used to do the computer repair service for this client before I took over. They must have replaced the power supply. Yeah, we'll keep it in there. This unit's got a spark. This machine's got a sparkle, which is also pretty much an FSP power supply. The other machine has a light on. Both are good brands. Matter of fact, as far as the OEM brands go, Lite-On is like probably the most supremo of all. At least I think. Now, the only thing though about this machine is this one has a Toshiba Samsung optical drive, so not certain if I'm going to be able to do my not going to be able to do the faceplate swap on this one, I don't think. So we'll have to figure something out there. If it had a Lite-On brand drive, sure, but this one has a Toshiba Samsung, so go figure. We'll get to that point when it comes. Yeah, this is the factory e-machine board here. Probably circa 2005. I may do some additional troubleshooting on it, see if I can get it working at a later time. It could be a bad stick of RAM or something like that, causing it not to post. Actually, I'll leave that in there as is. Okay, so it looks like we are ready to go. Now, with the E-machine systems from this era, sometimes you can put this faceplate up here and drop the drive in down below, but sometimes you can't. Pop the faceplate off. So yeah, let's go ahead and disconnect that. You know, other than the faceplate issues, and of course the kind of data connectors, like the older card readers and lack of USB 3, these E-machine cases are pretty nice for doing rebuilds and whatnot. If you guys recall, back in 2015 or 2016, I actually took some old 2002 E-machine systems, or towers rather, and gave them new life with A-series APUs. Got a few little dust bunnies in here. That's always disgusting. So apparently when they are blowing these out, they're not blowing up into the front like they should. That's a big place where dust will collect and block ventilation, is in between the actual chassis and the front bezel. So this tower looks like, I'm sorry, this bezel looks like it might be one of the ones it might be a pain. Let's see here. Now, if it pops in, that's great. If it don't, well, you'll see that's what I'm concerned about. So, okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some of either this stuff or hot glue. Actually, I'll probably use super glue. See, the thing is, this little plastic bezel, it sits in there. It doesn't really clip in like it does down below. So what I have to do is put a few dabs of super glue in place to where it'll securely hold it in place, but it can be knocked out should we ever want to put a drive back there, which I doubt that'll happen in this case. And of course, a lot of people just put a new drive down here in this area. But of course, I try to retain the original E-machine faceplate whenever possible. And I'll tell you, just you know, since well, it's a lot of work to make it function. And I just now realized that crap, this ain't gonna be 100% even. Actually, oh, look at there, it will fit. Huh. Go figure. Well, it's going to be very nice and secure now. Okay. So yeah, with some of the E-machines, it was essentially a no-go as far as moving this cover up from here to here. Some of you just couldn't do it with them. However, I think later on down the road they realized, oh, we need to make this thing a little more friendly as far as putting, let's say, at the top bay is not being used. Because I'll tell you, with the failure rate of some of the older E-machines, those chassis, a lot of the chassis were getting used for rebuilds. Now up through about 2010, you could still keep the IDE drives in there, but once motherboards started doing away with the parallel ATA or IDE headers altogether, at that point you were pretty much forced to replace the drives. Well, actually, yeah, I mentioned 2010, but actually I think at that point, it depends on what platform you're running. Some motherboards up to like 2012, maybe even 2013, were still running. We're still offering an IDE header. Yeah. So I'm going ahead and taking out this metal piece, since the new optical drive will be installed down here. It's funny to note that you know, since I'm not doing the modifications to the faceplate, I'm gonna probably save at least 30 minutes of time doing it, of doing this hardware upgrade. And there's even more dust bunnies in here. I may have a little discussion with the guy who supposedly is doing this maintenance. Say, hey, look, make sure you blow in the front of things as well. Yeah, they have an air compressor in the shop with a air wand attachment, so they try to keep their machines tidy, because some of them run in pretty rough environments up there. It is a sign making and graphics business. They make everything from like realty signs to actual like big banners to T-shirts. You know, stuff. They make all sorts of stuff. It's a locally owned business that has been expanding like a weed over the past several years. I mean, they have grown and grown and grown even since I started working on their stuff. It all started from a Craigslist ad back in 2014, back when I was selling refurbished computers en masse. They saw my Craigslist ad for refurbished machine, and once they bought a machine and had me come in, they were like, here, we have a whole bunch of machines. And they had a whole bunch of machines that were in need of upgrades. This is 2014. Spring 2014, right as the time Windows XP was going out of support. So, I had quite a bit of stuff to do that year. And now is around the time that they are starting to refresh some of those computers I sold them back then. Okay, so I'm going to grab the other motherboard and get it installed. Let's go ahead and get the faceplate, or the I/O shield plate installed. And you want to know exactly how fun that is. Speaking of, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning already. Like, man, time flies when you're busy working on something. I may end up having to wrap this up in the morning. And just like last time, I'm going to bend this up out of the way. Little freaking tab that's supposed to rest over the HDMI jack, but on every single one I did last time, it went inside. It went actually stuck down inside the HDMI port. I had to get it out of there. And carefully wrestle this very sharp piece of metal into place. Hopefully without drawing a bunch of red, you know. No bleeding, so far so good. Man, I tell you guys, I'll never forget, years ago, I was wrestling one into place and the freaking thing slipped and had a huge gash in my thumb. I thought there for a while, I thought I was going to get stitches. You gotta be careful with these things, because they will cut you up big time. Alright, let's get this motherboard put into place. I'm tired. I know I'm going to be spending a crap ton of time getting this video processed to get uploaded to YouTube. And also we need to go ahead and make sure that, okay, see on this one, this is one of the E-Machines towers that you can't thread the, you can't thread this out, so the only other option is to break it out. So that's what we're going to have to do. Like, yeah, that's unfortunate. You see, one of the E-Machines towers from the previous video, this little piece threaded out. Not this one, though. I think it really boiled down to who actually manufactured the machine. Because of the E-Machines, you had a whole variety of different companies, from Tri-Gem to FIC. This one was manufactured by ECST. There's a little, on the little badge on the back corner of the tower above the expansion slots, it's where the OEM is usually noted. Tri-Gem made a lot of the older ones. Then you started getting FIC, along with a few various other OEMs. Okay, so with this one, we gotta be careful down here because this won't be kind of a weak spot. Don't want to be pressing down the board too much there. Once we get everything bolted in. Yeah, it's always important that you double check headers on the case, because last thing you want to have is have one of the headers touch up against the bottom of the motherboard and short it out, because it could damage the board and cause you to end up ruining a brand new motherboard because of it. Again, not using that cordless screwdriver for threading the new screws into the motherboard. I do, however, use it for installing the hard drive and fans and power supplies and things like that. But there are some things that it's just too rough for, in my opinion. This is one of them. Okay, so that's all the screws for this one. go ahead and install our, replace our hard drive. You know, it's funny, all that I've used this thing, it still hasn't run the battery down yet. I have not had to charge it back up yet. Matter of fact, when it runs down, I'll probably have a time looking for the adapter for it. It just has one 18650 in there. Although it's most likely an IMR 18650 and not the ICR cells like when I run my cameras and stuff with. Huh. I wonder why that one's loose already. It ain't my fault. That's whoever last serviced this thing years ago. Whoever replaced his hard drive back in 2013. $320 GB hard drive. I wonder if it's still good. Yeah, the Western Digital Blues, they weren't exactly the most reliable. Now, something interesting to note. Is if you look carefully, the white label is exactly the same as this Caviar Blue. That's what it is. It is actually a Caviar Blue. I'll go ahead and get you a better view of that once we get this unpackaged. Okay, so here is the Caviar Blue. Caviar Black might be exactly the same design, I don't know for sure. So, there's the Western Digital, and here is the white label. Again, Western Digital to the left, white label to the right. And you see this is a little different here than the other one. But other than that, they are practically the same. Let's see. Same exact revision and part numbers on the circuit boards. So this is the white label is most likely a Caviar Blue. Now again, with these white labels, I have had, I think, a couple of them actually get batch sectors within less than a year. But other than that, they've run relatively well. Matter of fact, I've had more failures out of Seagate drives than I have had out of white label hard drives. The most bizarre failure, if you want to call it that, is the one that was Metal Lux before I did the most recent upgrade. It had been flagged as failing smart for over a year. However, the drive still performs perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, in Crystal Disk Info shows it's healthy. This thing gets them good and tight too, I must mention. It's on there. Okay, now that's ready to get installed back into the system. Go ahead and get our new optical drive installed. It'll be situated just a little bit lower than the original one, of course. Yeah, these E-machines, the way their towers are designed, I think it's a dumb idea the way they originally designed them. If you look carefully, you see there's a little notch here. They made the second drive bay to where you could put a regular style drive in place, but the top one, they never put the second holes there. They always intended to be, oh, we'll put some extra holes here for if the customer wants to install a second drive alongside the original E-machine's drive. But what if the original E-machine drive fails and needs to be replaced? Did you ever think of that? No, of course they didn't. They're E-machines. What do you expect? Okay. That's how you track down the screws. Okay, there they are. The fine brazed screws that are for the DVD drive. See if the screwdriver, the cordless screwdriver, will be able to get them in there. Okay, that one's in there. So just to confirm, this power supply only offers one SATA connector. Go figure. Okay. So we'll have to make do with what we have. And we'll probably need to reorganize these cables a bit. As long as I can get them away from the CPU core, we'll be golden. Now it's a matter of plugging up all our headers. Yeah, I don't understand. Again, I don't understand why Acer, I'm sorry, Ace Rock. Again, it is 1:30 in the morning. Not sure why Ace Rock didn't situate the front pedal headers over here. Not way over here. Because it does put a strain. It does put a strain on the things. You stretch them all the way out over here. Alright. Well, guys, the memory card ran on the camera while I was in the process of getting all these cables installed and whatnot. So you missed a little bit of that, but I got the cables installed now. I'm just going to go ahead and try to tidy this freaking desk up a little bit. Get some of these old cables out of the way and go ahead and plug these things up and see how they do. Okay. Moment of truth. Let's go ahead and try it out. And just like the last one, it took a little bit to do its first power on self-test. Here it goes. Get into the UEFI. And of course, because I don't have the camera on a tripod at the moment, it's going to do that. Set that down for a sec so I can Control Delete. The only thing I don't like about this board is apparently it does not work with controlling the speed of 3-pin fans. You hear that back fan is running wide open. You know, if it was a 4-pin header, it would be regulating the speed right now. So let's just tool around. Let's go to hardware monitor. So our CPU is running just fine. So if we go down here to, for example, let's try customize. And there's no options for selecting whether you're using a 3-pin header or 4-pin header. Now the board that's in the Motherboard Lux offers this functionality. You can select either 3-pin or 4-pin fan, and that way it's compatible with either fans with a PWM, which is that 4th wire, or standard 3-pin fans that don't have it, such as older fans, like what's in the C-Machines tower. So right now the CPU fan is running at a slower speed, so as you may be able to see there, so we have again the Ryzen 3 2200G 8 gigabytes of RAM. It's just a little look through the UEFI. Now what's neat about the UEFI on this board is whether your OS is an MBR OS or a GPT, it will boot it appropriately. You know, some BIOSes or UEFI utilities, you have to tell it whether to operate in UEFI mode or actually operate in legacy or CSM mode. This one, you can, let's see, I think it's in boot settings. See, it's enabled. Now, you could go in and disable it if you want to, but the default setting is enabled, so it'll work either way. And you can see it's seeing a hard drive, and if you look there, what do we have here? WDC, Western Digital. It's as I suspected, it's a Western Digital hard drive. So it looks like this one here is good to go. I'll be getting Windows and stuff loaded on it. Luckily, what it is, I have an image with all their software and stuff already loaded on it, so it's just a matter of getting that loaded and getting the drivers and stuff loaded. All that good stuff. You're gonna be all set. So now on to the second one. Alright. Let's go and give this one a try. And there we go. Okay, I went ahead and mounted the camera to a tripod this time. Let's go into the setup utility. 8 gigs of memory. Everything here seems okay. The 3.3 volt rails is a hair bit high though. But let's see. Hard drives being detected, and of course, again, this one is being detected as a Western Digital hard drive. Some of the earlier white label drives I worked with had a different firmware on them, to where the model of the drive was like WL. It was always start with WL. For example, for a 160 gig white label drive, it was WL160GSA. Blah blah blah. Whereas this one is still showing up as a Western Digital, so it has Western Digital firmware on it. So again, not really nothing too special here to see. Now the date and time is not correct on this one, and I didn't check the other one, but we'll have to get that corrected. But let's see. I think other than that, we should be good to go. So we'll go ahead and get Windows loaded on this one, just like the other one, and I'll have to get a hopefully find a matching cover for this, where the floppy disk drive used to go. Again, other than that, it should be good to go. So they'll be happy with these two machines as well, I'm sure. So that brings the total of upgraded computers to 5. Okay, everybody, I pretty much have wrapped up the building of these machines. Got the Acer one here and the E-machines down there on the floor. All I really like is just putting some decals and stuff on them, and I'll be done with them. And I did find a 3.5 inch cover for this, but unfortunately it ain't a matching one. But it is what it is. I'm going to talk with the client about possibly having ordered a 3.5 inch dry bay with USB 3 ports or something to occupy that space. Anyways, that wraps up for this computer build. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Well guys, that's it for this one. But it doesn't have to be. There's plenty more videos on the channel to check out. Also, if you liked the video, please click the like button. And if you absolutely hated it, there is the alternative button as well. But yeah, please subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. And remember to click the bell so that we get notified of all updates. Also, if you're interested in things aside from computers and technology, check out my second channel. It's CubeComp MTDX. Over there you'll find videos about weather, elevators, bicycling, and pretty much whatever else I figure out to upload. So yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for your support.